polling on school choice in the Black community doesn't do really well because of Black history. Even Jim Crow doesn't fare well to say the schools are going to now choose again. This languaging is important. It is much more effective to say, would you like this option as a parent, as opposed to saying school choice. When you have 4 million people leaving the conditions of slavery and then moving into a society that now has Jim Crow laws to shut them out, the next step is not to say, well, we want schools to choose again, because that's what Blacks hear when they hear the messaging of school choice. But if you poll on parental choice and or education choice, it began to do very, very well. I know it's interesting how one little word change, so perhaps we should do much more marketing on our side and focus groups before we start trying to message for other communities. That was discovered by EdChoice, which is Milton Friedman's group, when they were attempting to say, this is good for this community, for money to follow children to schools the parents want. And I 100% agree, and CURE 100% agrees that money should go to schools parents want. And yet we have these barriers. We have Blaine amendments in many states. We have other laws and union interests to try to fight for money to follow children to schools parents want. So it's been an effort to push it into the communities that need these options the most. The reason we were not making momentum on the school choice issues of the 90s and the 2000s, if you think about Black history in school choice, we had segregation laws. And many in the South, many think we're confined to the South, but it's not true. In fact, when the government got involved in educational issues and built the Department of Education in 1979, it was specifically because schools were choosing, and they were choosing not to allow for Black students in their schools. Brown versus Board of Education was national law. The Supreme Court ruled that you cannot discriminate against children and stop them from going to schools, especially if that school is right next door to their home, and to force them into another school environment. So this is a community that lived under those laws, that did not have educational options. This was a very aggressive time in Black history to be able to get education. I mean, once you start messaging, once the EdChoice and many other of our amazing educational groups on the right began to message toward parental choice and toward educational choice, we started seeing Blacks in 90% numbers say, yes, we want that.
Most of the votes are now in.
And in Florida, we've never seen where 18% of African American women would vote for a Republican against a Black Democrat, and specifically on the issue of parental choice. When DeSantis went into their communities and said, look, I want your children to get equipped with educational options. I want money to follow your children to wherever you want it to go, whether you want to go to a charter school or a private school or a home school, or even if you want the public school, we want this. And my administration is going to ensure that you have that, as opposed to Gillum, who was running against him, who was trying to shut down charter schools and school options. So parents voted for him. And the reason I specifically said African American female is because this is still the group that's not buying ideas from the right. This is the place where we have work to do as a conservative right to reach into the Black female population, because Black men are already trending toward Republican because they're hearing the message on economic empowerment. But Black women, they're thinking about their children, and this is a winning issue there.